Good evening. Hope you all are doing well. Sorry that you got me 2 Wednesdays in a row. There must have been a glitch, but I am thankful for this opportunity to get to stand before you and talk to you. Last Sunday, Jack was kind of poking fun about the bald guy that was doing the daily Devo on the Monday daily devotional. And then I watched it, and I kind of didn't recognize that guy either. And then I got a text from my mom that said, "Don't cut your hair like that ever again." So that kind of started to get me think about, not that my hair is pretty, it's actually pretty bad. But tonight in our young class, we actually talked about Samson. And not that I'm comparing myself to Samson in any way, shape, or form, but we did talk about him. And in Judges chapter 16, verses 1 through 26, we see the story of kind of the end of Samson's life. Samson was an extraordinary man, a man who was given a gift of power by God through his hair. And Samson, well, he kind of fell into some situations. And he met a woman that he fell for after spending maybe a little too much time in places that he shouldn't have been. And this woman who had known all of the things that Samson had done, the things that Samson had done for the children of Israel, especially against the Philistines, devised a plan with some of her friends to find out what it was that gave Samson so much power and the source of that. And so for a little bit, Samson kind of just toys with her. He tells her some different things that it could be, and each time tricks her of that, which makes her just a little bit more mad all the time. And finally, Samson gives in. He finally gives in after she is persistent and pesters her. And he says, "My hair's never been cut. It is the source of my strength." And so that night as he goes to sleep, men come in, they cut his hair, they bind him, and he is powerless to fight against them. And they deliver him to the Philistines. Before we get to the rest of Samson, I want to talk about us for a minute and the idea of the power that we have, the source of our strength. And how sometimes we lose focus of that, much like Samson did. Samson was very proud of the abilities that he had, and he was very fond of what he could do, and yet he forgot what that source really was. The source was never really the hair. The source was God. God is the one that gave him the strength and the power to do those things. You and I sometimes, and I'll say me more than you, I'm sure, but I lose focus on the source of my strength and of my power. I lose focus on the things that I should be doing sometimes because I let things of this world get in my way. Now, it's not always sin. Sometimes we let things such as our families get in the way. I want the very best for my family, so I'll focus everything I have in that, and I lose focus over here on what's the most important with them. Or sometimes our jobs. I've got to provide for my family, right? I got to do what's right. Hey, I ain't going to contribute unless I have a job that's paying me. So I focus on that, and I lose focus on the source of my strength. Sometimes it's our abilities. We think, well, maybe I'm not good enough to do that anymore. Or maybe I'm just getting too old to be able to do these kinds of things. Or I'm not really the best song leader anyways. I probably shouldn't do it. And we lose focus on who gives us the strength and the power to do the things that are set before us. Samson lost his focus. Samson lost knowing where that source of power came from. And so Delilah tricks him, and he's now in the hands of the Philistines. And they have a big feast, as you know, and they're there, and they're mocking him as he is chained. They poke out his eyes, which ironically is, once they poke out his eyes, he's kind of seeing clearer than he's ever seen before. He remembers where that source of his power has come from. And as he's there, chained between two pillars, as these Philistines are mocking him and having a party because they have locked up this great Philistine killer, he prays. He remembers his source, and he prays to God that he could have that source of power one more time. And we know the way the story of Samson ends. He is given that power one more time to pull those chains, to bring that pillar down, and to defeat those Philistines. As a matter of fact, it says, on that day he slew more Philistines than he had his entire life by using God's power that was before him. Sometimes we forget that strength or that source of strength. And sometimes it's when we're the most blinded that we need to open our eyes and find God once again and ask Him to restore us and to give us that great source. The great thing about Samson's story is this is not the last time we actually hear from him, even though he dies here in Judges chapter 16. We actually hear about him in Hebrews chapter 11, the roll call of faith. The who's who of faithful Christians who have gone before us and their incredible acts. And in Hebrews chapter 11, verse 32, it says, "And what shall I more say? For the time would fail me to tell of Gideon, and of Barak, and of Samson, and of Jephthah, and of David, and Samuel, and of the prophets." The amazing thing about the ending of Samson's life is that he is now in that roll call of faith because he found his source of strength one last time. The question tonight is, have you let this earth blind you from what it is that you are able and capable of doing? Have you let your focus slip away and kept you from using those abilities that God has blessed you with? My hope is if you have, it's not too late. Samson, his very last act, was bringing himself back to being right with God. And my hope and my prayer is you will find that same strength to do that as well. If you have any needs, come now as we stand and as we sing.